Marketing, like a symphony, is a harmonious blend of instruments. But without the proper direction, it's just noise. Welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show, presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. From the art of storytelling to the science of data, we'll uncover marketing strategies that drive success. In this episode, Ralph Henderson and Melissa Taylor discuss lead generation and content development.
So lead generation, content development, it's really kind of three different things. And who would rather get leads from referrals than cold calls? Me. Everybody wants to hear from the supply chain industry.
And now, here's your marketing guide and host, Ralph Henderson.
Which came first, lead generation or content development? The chicken. Hi, I'm Ralph Henderson. I'm your guide to the Supply Chain Marketing Show. Welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something very close to our hearts as supply chain marketing professionals, and that is lead generation. What is it? What do we do with it? How do we develop it? A lot of things going on. And I know as a supply chain marketing professional, this is something you're held accountable to, and this is something you work very hard on. I'm very excited to get into this conversation. Before I do, I just want to thank you for being here. And I also want you to know that the Supply Chain Marketing Show is going to come to you on a monthly basis, talking about the different parts of marketing in the supply chain. And we're going to touch on things like branding and content development, lead generation, online strategy, earned media. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for the Supply Chain Marketing Show. We're going to be on all of the podcast platforms as well as YouTube and others. And if you have any suggestions for presenters or for topics, we're happy to hear that. We are brought to you by Supply Chain Brain Media. And you can certainly go check us out at supplychainbrainmedia.com/the show. We appreciate that. So without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to be diving into today, and that is this art and science of lead generation. I believe the goal of marketing in the supply chain space is to eliminate outbound. That's what I said. Now, if we're going to do that, we've got to be really good at all of the other things. But in order to get there, the reality of it is, as a veteran since 1991 in this space, I know there are things we have to do. And today we're going to talk about those. And whom better to talk to about it than a thought leader? So today we have with us just that, a thought leader in what we're talking about today, somebody who's going to help us with the idea of how lead generation works, somebody who's going to help us with how content development works. Please help me welcome Melissa Taylor. Melissa is one of the founders at rogerandmelissa.com. They are a thought leader organization in all things professional. Welcome, Melissa.
Well, thanks. It's really exciting to be here today. Looking forward to it.
When we say lead generation, we think of things like trade shows. We think of things like e-blasts and those kind of things. So let's talk about lead generation and why you think that is something that they do need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, let me just give you an example that actually I came across last week. So I went to a trade show. It was actually for promotional products, which of course have lots of supply chain elements to it. So I went there and I saw a bunch of different products. So that was a typical lead generation. They were writing down people's names. They were writing down the products that we liked. They were doing all the things. And then I got home, and a few days later, I got an email blast from like every single person from that trade show, right? So they all looked the same. They always kind of had the same information. Then I got a couple of personal emails saying, hey, it was nice to meet you. You looked at these items. Can we provide you a quote? That kind of thing. But then what happened was I started seeing content from some of the companies popping up in my feeds, in my LinkedIn feed. And it was talking about the importance of promotional products, how it can foster customer loyalty, how it can increase the attraction rate, and all of these things. And those companies stood out now. because they were there to actually help me understand why I would be doing business with them, who I'm doing business with. They had some personal stories or like meet the team kind of stuff in their content generation. And it started to really paint this bigger picture for me of wanting to work with that particular company that provides promotional products. So which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first, lead generation, content? They just play well together, right? They both have to be in the sandbox playing together because otherwise they don't, neither one can really stand alone in today's world.
And, I agree with that wholeheartedly. We really do have good products and services so that when we do these e-blasts or trade shows, we do have something to back it up in the way of products and services. But I
Mhm.
think one of the things that I would love for you to address with the audience is maybe that little bit of a gap between what it is they're trying to do with bringing these leads in with what they have in products and services. What would you help them with as far as how they get from A to B there?
Yeah, series coming up, but it's all about attracting, connecting, and converting. Like we all know that. That's marketing, right? Attract, connect, convert. That's what we need to do. Well, in the attraction model, right, that is where we really concentrate on the trade shows, the email blasts, the putting the products and services out there that solve a problem. So if somebody's looking for a solution to a problem, they find our products and services. Okay, so that's attraction. But we still do a lot of cold calling. We still do a lot of cold reach out, and we usually put the products and services as like the front of the cold call.
Mm.
Look, here's what we have. Look, here's what we have. Do you have this problem? Look, here's what we have. So that's one type of attraction. But another type of attraction that's gained a lot of recognition over the past decade is just really that attraction to the business, who you are, the mission, the purpose of what is happening, of what you're doing, and the bigger problem that you're solving or the bigger problems that you can solve. So we don't necessarily have to attract by pinpointing and focusing in on like one thing that we can solve. We can say, hey, here we are. This is who we are. We can create that familiarity with our brand, our people, our products, and our services. So then when people think, I need something kind of in this area, oh, I should call Ralph because he has all this stuff. He's been putting out all this stuff. He obviously knows what he's talking about. If he doesn't have a solution for me, I'm sure he knows somebody who does. So we become that person that you just always reach out to. So you're not just looking for the person that solves that one problem.
Oh, yes, great answer because you touched on a lot of things there. The first one you talked about attract, connect, and convert. I love
Mhm.
that. And you did allude to a three-part mini-series, and we will talk more about that at the end of the show. So hang on for a few minutes and we'll go over that in detail. Uh, but one of the things you also talked about was being there when they need you. That seems to be almost like the nemesis of the marketing person. And certainly in the supply chain, we're no different because we do have these really long sales cycles. And so we go to these trade shows, we do all this effort, but then the person who needs us, if we do the research, we find out that it's well over 90% is really not ready for us at that show. I mean, that's a lot of people. And
Mhm.
so, what are we doing in order for them to know who we are when they need us after we've done such a good job of impressing them at that show?
Yep, it's that connection piece. And that's where a lot of people kind of fall through the cracks, that connection piece, staying connected. We have a saying in our programs that we teach is never let anybody get 30 days away from you. So
Hmm.
in other
That's
words,
a
you
good
should
one.
be connecting
Say
with
that
them.
again. That's a good one.
Yep, never let anybody get 30 days away from you. So if you go to a trade show and you get people's information every 30 days at the minimum, they should be getting something from you. And the last thing they want from you is, are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy? Right? So that's where content comes into play, right? You can give them really good content around the industry, around things that are changing, regulations, how you deal with crisis, how you deal with crisis, how you deal with crisis situations with your clients, case studies, white papers. It doesn't all have to be salesy,
Hmm.
right? Because there's really three kind of buckets that we put things into. We put in like the education and credibility bucket. That's the one I'm talking about, like sending them things about every 30 days that have something to do with education, about the industry, all those different kinds of things, credibility. Then we have the bucket of leads and acquisitions, where that's where you're being a little bit more salesy, asking for the sale, showing some products, features, services, call to actions. And then you have your retention and loyalty bucket. And I will tell you, Ralph, this is the bucket that people have a hole in. They just
Mm.
do. So they get a client, they might have a client for 2 or 3 years, and they just assume that's the lifetime value of a client. It doesn't have to be, right? In most cases, it's the lifetime value of a client because you didn't pay attention to that bucket. And that's also the bucket where content really comes into play, right? And that's where you get more referrals. And who would rather get leads from referrals than cold calls? Me, right? So that retention and loyalty bucket of marketing and content creation and lead acquisition is really important to not you need to pay attention to it.
And again, just so that you're clear, maybe say that again from a
Sure.
different angle on that retention and loyalty bucket part.
Yeah, that's just so key. For example, in my business, I'm not in the supply chain industry, but it's all the same, all right? We still have past clients. So we send out a postcard every single month with some kind of motivational saying on it. We send out little gifts. We have a LinkedIn newsletter that goes out. We make sure that they're subscribed to that. I'll go out on their LinkedIn, make a comment on their post, see how they're doing. We'll send certain educational resources to our current and past clients just to foster that loyalty. And then every once in a while, we'll ask for a referral. And we don't
You
normally have to ask because we do all that, the referrals come in without having to ask.
kind of what would be your advice on how they would do that?
And we have a whole kind of program around that because we actually are under the we like to say you never ask for a referral, like flat
Okay.
out. Hey, Ralph, do you have somebody I can talk to? Like that just feels uncomfortable for everybody. So, what we normally do is we provide so much information and content and foster that relationship and that loyalty that then anytime Ralph is out networking or talking to people or talking to their CEOs or whatever, and something comes up that sparks oh, Melissa knows about that, the referral automatically comes into play. So you're keeping yourself top of mind with all the things that you can help with. And that's
Right.
how the referrals actually pour in. Now, can you ask for a referral? Sure, you can ask for a referral. There's good ways to do it and there's not so good ways to do it. And so that's, something that we can definitely explore and talk about, especially in the mini series. But one of the greatest ways is to actually give them something before you ask for something. So
Mm.
give them a testimonial, give them a referral, give them a free workshop on something that their business could use, give them a contact to an expert that could help them with something that they could implement into their business, and then say, hey, really happy that so and so came in and helped you sort out your financial books or whatever. uh, is there anybody that that we could be of service to?
I
Okay.
would be remiss as the guide of the supply chain marketing show if I did not bring up the word trust. I can give them enough content. I inspire them to trust me and to be loyal to me. So maybe
Mhm.
talk about how does trust work in what you do and how you connect with folks.
No, I think you kind of said it, right? But trust is really important. We actually use the word belief because I
Mhm.
think it's a step beyond trust. Like I can trust you, but not believe that you can get me where I need to be.
Mm.
Right. So we're really big on belief. You have to instill in me a belief that you can get me from point A to point B, that you can get me a solution. You have to instill a belief that I have to believe. That's a little it's very similar to trust, but it kind of has a stronger action, in my
Well,
opinion,
and it's more
form to it.
applicable these days with Ted Lasso. So you're in good shape with belief.
Yeah,
Uh,
so
no
so it's really
problem.
important to do that. And one of the things with content, it can create that, right? So all pieces of content really have four elements to it. You want to touch the heart. Now that doesn't mean you have to be all feely, emotional, touching the heart, right? But this is kind of hitting that pain point. What are they struggling with? What's the conversation in their head? What's the conversation around the boardroom table that they're struggling with, right? So we're touching the heart, then we're influencing the mind of like how to take that from, okay, we can help solve that, we can, this is what we can do. And then in the process of your content, you're also equipping their hands to be able to do something about it, and then moving their feet to get them to use you. right?
Right.
So we're touching their heart, equipping their mind, I'm sorry, influencing their mind, equipping their hands, and moving their feet with
I
all
like it.
pieces of content.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like and I like how you broke that out. Okay, so that was the left brain side. Let's
Mhm.
talk about the right brain side because you actually touched on it when you were talking about staying in touch with them no less than or no more than 30 days. And that is the fun side. That is the, let's be creative. We tend to struggle a little bit with that. And so what would you say to the supply chain marketing professional who's thinking about some of those kind of things and how they might use that?
Yeah. So in the world of marketing, there's been this, huge like personal branding and be yourself and be authentic and all these things, which I think supply chain marketers don't understand how that can apply to their business, but it absolutely
Mm,
can. I'm not saying the supply chain marketer has to have a personal brand, but what I'm saying is that if you think about the brands that make a difference, it's the ones that you feel really a connection and familiarity with. And the only way you can do that is because they've been creative in connecting with you. All right. So either through their social good causes or through their cute little mascots, you think about like the polar bear with Coke,
right.
or through creative and fun ways that they connect with you. Well, I talked to a speaker the other day. He wrote a book about how to get a meeting with anyone. And I don't want to ruin the book for you, but basically he's using cartoons and graphics of cartoons in his emails because people then go, oh, it's a cute little cartoon, and they actually read it because it might be personalized, right? So I think you can have fun without going overboard and being like trying to be funny. There's a difference. And
Mm.
so that fun can actually connect with people. Again, that kind of alludes back to the touch the heart also, right? Is to have something that can make you connect. And the cool thing about supply chain, because I've been doing my research on supply
Yeah,
chain,
I know you have.
um, is there are so many things that, depending on where you're in the supply chain process, are important to the people either below you or like on either side of you, right? They either come before you or after you in the supply chain. And there's so many different things that they do think about and talk about. And if you're bringing those up and showing educational and content and solutions and ideas around those, think where are they going to go if they have a question? They're going to go to you. Even if it's not a problem that you solve, it's going to make you the thought leader in that industry.
I appreciate that, and I know we'll touch on that more in the mini series as
Yeah.
well. Another thing I know we're going to dive into in the mini series that we're going to do is the business side of it, the challenge that the supply chain marketing professional has as it relates to their own organization. What kind of encouragement can we give them now, kind of in preparation for the mini series? As we talk about the business side of supply chain marketing internally and externally.
Putting out content feels like a slower churn, right?
Mm,
It feels like a slower churn. But here's what happens. You you can do lead generation, pure lead generation, knocking on doors, cold as ice, and you're going to see the numbers, right? Content's a little harder to follow, although we have a lot of really good tools nowadays that can show us, this content got this many clicks and this many clicks got this and this. And so we can do a lot of those metrics. But what you'll find is that when you create that content and that content bubble grows and grows and grows and grows, what happens is the leads that come out of that, the clicks that come out of that, the connections that come out of that are warm. So now the bubble is getting bigger and it's like pushing on the sales cycle and making the sales cycle smaller. So what happens is when they come to you, they're warm, they understand you, they feel connected to your company, they feel familiar with your people, and it becomes this shorter sales cycle, or the connection piece of the sales cycle becomes much shorter.
yeah, and you said a word that, in my opinion, is just as important as trust and believe, and that is familiar.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of people don't realize how influenced the Westerner, especially the in the US, we are with people and or things we're familiar with.
Uh-huh.
So I really appreciate you bringing that up and telling them about that. So as we kind of get to the end of this vodcast, what
Mhm.
would you kind of give our folks on things they might want to remember from this, or something they might want to do right now as supply chain marketing people?
I think one of the first most important things is for them to really think about what is their lead generation strategy and make
Hmm.
sure that they put some room in the budget to invest in content and opening doors marketing. Let's say open door marketing. Like, let's open those doors. Let's get people coming through the doors to us and put some of your budget into that. That's really important. So that's one thing. Right now, they got 3 months. Look back at your past client list. Look back at your clients right now and plug the holes in the boat. Like that, when we start working with a client, that's the first thing we look at is how many of your clients are just going away and just falling down out of the boat. So let's plug those holes first. So when we do the content and we do the lead generation and we do the acquisition strategies that we're talking about, they never go away.
Hmm.
They either continue to purchase from you or they bring in more referrals. And that's really what you want. So plug
Yeah.
the holes in your boat between now and the end of the year.
And I can tell you, as somebody who served on submarines, having no holes in the boat is very important.
Very
Very
important. Very
important.
important. Very important.
And
So that would
and
be what I would
another
concentrate on.
and another thing I say to supply chain marketing people, because I do try to get their attention with some provocative comments from time to time, like, the goal of marketing is to eliminate outbound. Even
Yep.
though, that's true, it is a little provocative. The other thing I say is, what you're talking to them about and the segue into promoting this 3-part mini series that we're going to be doing next quarter is we're going to be creating a program, a process for them. So instead of them knocking on doors, their prospects are going to be knocking on yours,
Yep.
right? So that's another kind of counterintuitive thing. It's like, look, we understand anytime you start something, you have to do the heavy lifting.
Hmm.
So as we wrap up, we're going to be promoting this 3-part mini series. Can you give them just maybe a 15-30 second commercial on the mini series?
So we are going to talk about lead generation strategies that attract, connect, and convert using the language of supply chain. So we're going to talk to you about the raw materials and the manufacturing and the logistics and the warehousing. And we're going to talk about marketing from that standpoint to kind of put it into perspective of how you can really implement it in a structure that you already understand and it already works for you. So we are going to do that. We're going to talk about the 3 buckets: the education and credibility bucket, the leads and acquisition bucket, which is the sales bucket, and the retention and loyalty bucket. And I'm going to give you a slew of ideas for supply chain marketing content creation.
Fantastic. I know everyone is looking forward to that, the value you're going to bring. So with that, Melissa, I cannot thank you enough for taking these few minutes and spending them with us to talk about lead generation and content development, how important that is, and the relationship between them.
I'm excited to be with you guys in quarter 1. And remember, with all the stuff that's happened, everybody wants to hear from the supply chain industry.